Hello and welcome to DC News Now, the news at noon. I'm Shanika Grimshaw.
And I'm Haley Milan. I am in for Mark Hall today.
And we have a lot to cover today, especially breaking news that we've been following about a Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Haley, take us through it.
Yeah, Shanika, we have been covering this case for months. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was detained by ICE, a judge determined wrongfully, back in March. He was deported to El Salvador, but he was brought back to face charges for a purported traffic stop back in 2021 in Tennessee. The Trump administration alleging that Abrego Garcia was engaging in human trafficking. There's been a game of ping pong here. Real ping pong, perhaps you could say, testing the waters, the Trump administration here with this case, and perhaps some frustration on the judicial side. So here to break it all down for us is Zach Schoenfeld, our colleague over at The Hill. Zach, you cover courts and legal issues, and you have been following this case like white on rice. Tell us, it has been quite a roller coaster.
Hey, Haley and Shanika, that's right. Quite a roller coaster ever since this case began back in March when Kilmar Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador despite an immigration ruling on the books preventing him from being removed there, his home country. But now, about 9 months later, this is quite a development in his case with the judge in Maryland, Judge Paula Zinis, who has been handling this case. She's an appointee of former President Obama, serves in the federal courthouse over in Greenbelt. She's been on this case ever since March, and today ruling that Kilmar Abrego Garcia must be released from ICE custody. He has been in ICE custody ever since late August, soon after he was brought back to the United States over the summer. And this is now a major development. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, ever since he was put back in immigration custody, has been fighting for this day, saying that the U.S. government has no lawful reason to detain him. So this is a major win for him now, getting released immediately from ICE custody.
So you say a major win. You have been following this back and forth. I mean, Zach, we have seen the administration propose sending him to Eswatini, a number of countries. The Abrego Garcia team has appealed, has pushed back, said that he fears persecution in those countries. This has been a wild ride. Do you anticipate that the Trump administration will comply with this order?
Well, we'll find out very quickly here, as the judge made very clear, if you read through the actual language of her order, that this is not just, release him at some point. She has used the word immediately for his release. We're actually, she even set out some hour-by-hour directions to a point. She said they need to give his lawyers at least 4 hours notice of when that's going to happen. And then she wants an update later today. By 5 p.m. today, she wants an update about where things are. So you can imagine that if we get to 5 p.m. and the Trump administration has not been taking steps, I think it's pretty clear that the judge is going to start moving and escalating matters still. Now, that being said, even, once this release does happen and he's released from ICE custody, you mentioned at the top that he still faces those human smuggling charges, and that is a separate case. Those are criminal charges. And so he actually still will be subject to his pretrial release conditions in that case. So we actually expect that after he is released, he'll still be subject to home detention, as well as some monitoring and other measures to help him appear in court. So he'll be back home in Maryland, but still those conditions will progress.
Certainly a relief for the Abrego Garcia family. It has been quite a 10 months over in Maryland for them. But to that point, the case in Tennessee, Abrego Garcia's legal team has argued that the Trump administration is maybe making something out of nothing and seeking retribution, right? Do they have a real case here with that traffic stop back in 2021?
Yeah, a lot of the defense that we've seen from them in this case really, doesn't even get into the actual legal merits of those human smuggling charges, because one of their main arguments is they say that he's being vindictively prosecuted. They say, essentially that the Trump administration is trying to use this case to essentially cover up an embarrassment for them of when they mistakenly deported this man to El Salvador back in March. They have asked the judge to dismiss that on that grounds, and they are still fighting that battle. And that really, has nothing to do with actually what's in that indictment. indictment where he is accused of transporting migrants in the country illegally on dozens of trips over many years, ever since he entered the country back in about 2011, 2012 or so. And that criminal case is still progressing. He still, at least as of right now, has that criminal trial in front of him. Now, one other key thing I think is notable that we don't have a lot of answers to, but it's a big question right now, is there's been quite a lot of sealed filings in that criminal case in Tennessee over the last week or so. So we've been watching, we've been keeping our eye on the docket, but still a lot of questions. There seems to be some activity that we just don't know about in the public sphere quite yet that seems to be happening.
This seems to be a symbolic case. Abrego Garcia has become a flashpoint for this administration's Department of Homeland Security, not only testing the waters, but the Trump administration using it to show their resolve in pursuing the deportations of so many people they purport are illegal immigrants. What happens now? What does this mean for other cases?
I think Abrego Garcia's case is a bit of a unique one given his circumstances. You know, this is not the only mistaken deportation case that we've seen since the president took office back in January. But, you know, there's no case quite like his circumstances here, where he was deported to this notorious mega prison in El Salvador, wrongfully so. It quickly went up to the Supreme Court on their emergency docket, back to the lower courts in Maryland. Eventually, after months, he was brought back to the U.S., now faces criminal charges. So his case, in some senses of that, is a bit of a unicorn here. So I think legally speaking, you know, this isn't necessarily a precedent that's going to, you know, impact anyone else's case. But still, as you mentioned, Haley, this was a really big flashpoint, especially back in the spring when that wrongful deportation happened. So at least in the court of public opinion, this certainly is a big deal here and a very big victory here for Abrego Garcia.
Something we don't always get in these cases is a taste of the tone and the temperature in the courtroom. You have been there. Real quick, Zach, before I let you go, just want you to characterize the judge's reaction to all of this for us.
Yeah, there's no cameras allowed inside that Greenbelt courtroom, but we've had many of these hearings, and I'll tell you, almost at all of them, the judge has gotten very, very frustrated at times, you know, even raising her voice and just sounding exasperated with the administration's efforts, its efforts saying they were going to try to deport him to 4 different African countries at different points. So I think to a certain extent, this ruling isn't too much of a surprise, given the frustration that we've seen the judge express over these last 9 months.
Well, Zach, we know this has occupied a lot of your time over the past 9 months, too. You've clocked a lot of hours in that courtroom. We really appreciate you joining us today, and this is certainly something we're going to touch base with you about as we follow that Tennessee case. Zach Schoenfeld of The Hill, our courts and legal reporter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Zach.